Hey, boys and girls, we are trying to get a bird's eye view in honor of Amelia Earhart, which is our chapter today. So Amelia Earhart, many of you already know who she is, but you'll see and got a view from up high, kind of like we are right now, even though we're not in a plane.
Beautiful.
Okay, so we are on page 406 in our book, and this is chapter 41, Amelia Earhart. 1897 to 1939, not very long, and we'll see why. Love for adventure. Mr. Kornthal, you want to start us out?
I would love to. And
Nice
is it okay to have my glasses on?
That's fine.
It's a little sunny out.
And it might start raining on
It
us.
might start raining, so we'll see how that goes. So, okay, let's go.
Here we go.
As a child, Amelia Earhart loved adventure and the outdoors. She loved to go fast. Watch out, Amelia shouted to her friends as she grabbed her sled, got a running start, and flew down the steep hills. Look at her go, her friend said in amazement. She is not afraid of anything. When Amelia's family went to the World's Fair in St. Louis, Missouri, she saw her first roller coaster.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Now, she was we could do a virtual tour, a virtual ride on a roller coaster right now from our house. But this, remember, if you didn't see it then live, you just didn't see it. Before we turn the page, let's look at the timeline. So you see, she actually, the same year she died was the year World War I started. World War II. She did live through World War I. And lived at the turn of the century, which was the 1800s to the 1900s. So here we go. Very short life, and you will see why. That looks like fun, Amelia said. After riding it, remember what she was riding, the roller coaster. See, look at the picture right there. That's not Amelia Earhart, but you can see what an early wooden roller coaster looked like. Okay. That looks like fun, Amelia said after riding it. She went home and tried to build her own roller coaster. It did not work the first time. As she was riding the cart down a ramp, she fell off. Amelia was not badly hurt, and she was determined to try again. After changing her design, she had a successful trip down her roller coaster. Maybe if you can design something safely and you have stairs at your house, you can design a fun ramp.
But ask your parents.
Do it with your parents.
Yes, please.
That could be your roller coaster adventure extra trip this week. Amelia's determination would later help her to do amazing things as an adult. Mr. Kornthal.
I would love to read. When Amelia was in the 8th grade, she saw one of the Wright brothers. We just learned about them.
Yes.
First airplane. It was not like the fast flying machines of today, and it could not stay in the air for long. Little did Amelia know that just a few years later, she would be flying high in the sky, breaking the records and making a name for women pilots.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay, so the World's Fair, we already mentioned that, but let's see what it is. Mr. Kornthal, it says World's Fair. Can you read the definition of that, please?
Yeah, I love it. An event where countries from around the world show inventions and achievements.
So many of you have been to like the Washington County Fair or the Oregon State Fair, so it's like that, but even with more people invited. And it was big because, right now you could show inventions, you have commercials, you have things and rollouts online. Here you had to actually go to some place and show people. So there was even more inventors and things that brought things to these fairs. Okay, so Amelia Earhart and Charles Lindbergh, you're gonna have a question on your quiz. And one of them is gonna say like the first person to make a solo, this literally will be on your quiz. The first person to make a solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. Do not put Amelia Earhart. It is not her. Who is it? Who is it, Mr. Kornthal?
Charles Lindbergh.
Charles Lindbergh.
Sounds like a cheese.
It does sound like Limburger cheese.
Yeah.
But so Charles Lindbergh was actually the first person to make a solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. So that will be on your quiz. It's not Amelia Earhart. But Amelia Earhart was the first woman to fly an airplane across the Atlantic Ocean. Very big distinction.
Word.
So the first person was actually a man named Charles Lindbergh.
Right.
The first woman was
Amelia Earhart.
Awesome. We're going to zip through this chapter. Here we go. School years. So we already know 8th grade. She's making achievements and moving in the right direction.
And we're on page 408.
408 in your book.
408.
Excellent. At the top of the page. School
Let's do
years.
it.
When Amelia was 19 years old, she went to a fishing school. No.
Fishing school? I
No.
caught something, Mama! I caught something!
Okay, she's crazy. I didn't do that on purpose. Finishing.
Finishing.
School. Maybe we call it a high school or a prep school or like a junior college. She went to a finishing school where girls learned manners So literally, like, the girls went there to learn proper etiquette. Like, that was the subject that they were learning at their school. So finishing, like, oh, you're proper, you're so finished,
I'm
you're
so
so
proper.
refined. So she went to a finishing school where girls learned manners as well as regular school subjects. She did well, quickly made friends, and became a leader among her classmates. In her second year at finishing school, Amelia became the vice president of her class. Her motto was, their motto was, honor is the foundation of courage. This was a motto that would stick with Amelia the rest of her life. So honor is the foundation of courage.
Not a bad one.
That's good to think about. I want to chew on that for a little bit. During Christmas break, Mr. Cornthal.
Yes. During Christmas break, Amelia went to Toronto, Canada. World War I had begun. She saw wounded soldiers and decided she needed to help. She did not return to school, but helped nurses in a hospital until the war ended. This made her think, maybe I will become a doctor. I will have to go to college and study hard. Amelia attended college and studied science, but she had to leave because she did not have enough money to finish.
Bummer. But sometimes the things that end up being hurdles in our life are what God uses to move us in the direction he wants.
Yeah.
What will I do now? Amelia wondered. The question was answered when her father took her to an air show. These airplanes were much different from the planes she had seen years before. Do you remember how much progress the Wright brothers had made and all the quick progressions once they did their initial flight, how quickly the planes improved? So we're still at the bottom of the page, 408. It says, these were exciting, fast-flying planes that could perform tricks. This is amazing, Amelia shouted in excitement. This is for me. I will be a pilot. Okay, Howland. The island in the Pacific Ocean where Amelia Earhart was supposed to land. So you can't even see the island.
Tiny.
It's covered by the dot. So I know you want to open the page and to make it bigger. But you can look this up. Maybe that's a fun thing you do. It's like,
check it out.
hey, can we Google Howland Island, Google Maps, and see if you can actually zoom in and see the Earth view? So that is where she was supposed to land. A little bit of foreshadowing.
Howland.
If it said she was supposed to land there, do you think she might not have? All right, learning to fly, Mr. Cornthal. We are on page 409.
409. Amelia Earhart wasted no time at all. 3 days later, she met a pilot who took her up in his plane. The plane had only 2 seats. The cockpit was open. She had to wear goggles to protect her eyes. Miss Earhart said about this trip, by the time I had got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly. Flying lessons were expensive, $1 per minute. Miss Earhart knew she must find a way to pay for these lessons. She and her mother both worked hard to save money. Finally, she found a woman who would teach her to fly. Amelia Earhart asked her all sorts of questions. She was determined to become the best pilot she could be. If the weather was good, she was in the air. If the weather was bad, she was reading books and studying. All Miss Earhart could think about was flying. She even learned to repair planes.
Okay, so she was had airplane on the brain. She was reading about flight. She was doing whatever she could, saving money to take more lessons, asking questions, even learning to repair planes. So she wanted to know how the planes worked. Okay, so we're at the middle of page 409. Abigail, can you please go for a walk?
Come on, go for a walk.
Sorry, boys and
Abigail's
girls.
taking a walk, and we just need her to go.
We love you. There's a
We
giant
love you.
park
You
over
need
there.
to go, honey.
Okay.
It's time to go. Go walk
Thank
the
you.
dog. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep
Thank you.
going.
Go walk it.
You can
Keep
keep
going.
going.
Yeah.
Have a good time.
Keep going. Keep walking.
Love you.
Thank you. Okay.
Middle of the page, 409. That was a commercial break. To Amelia Earhart was finally able to purchase her own plane. She painted it yellow, my favorite color, and called it the Canary, because
Canary
canaries
yellow.
are yellow birds.
Yeah.
She must have felt like a bird in the sky as she flew. To Amelia Earhart's surprise, her flight instructor got married and stopped teaching. Whoops. During this time in America, married women usually worked only in their homes. Even though she had been asked, Miss Earhart did not want to marry because she did not want to give up flying. Flying was her true love.
Interesting.
That is interesting.
My true love is you.
Aw, thanks.
I don't.
And I'm still working, so that's nice.
Yeah, and I don't like to fly.
Well, anywho.
I don't.
Now Amelia Earhart needed a new teacher. She found a man who had not only served in the army as a pilot, but was also a stunt or trick flyer. So have you ever gone to the air shows and the pilots who can do all like the rolls and they go up, the rolls and then they go up and then they drop. So all that kind of stuff, that's the trick flyer, not just like runway, fly, land. So he was a trick flyer. She began her flying lessons again and even learned to fly upside down in loops.
Wow.
She was always ready to try daring things. She could fly higher than any other woman. Could she fly higher than any other woman had flown? Yes. Amelia Earhart took her plane to 14,000 feet. It was dangerous because there was less oxygen at that height. Her plane had engine trouble, but she landed safely. Now she was determined to break even more records. So they didn't have the same air pressure, the cabin pressure and things that we have now. So flying was just more dangerous. All right. We might pause and put them together.
Okay. Amelia Earhart heard about a man...
Sorry, we're on 410.
Oh, 410.
New records.
I apologize. Amelia Earhart heard about a man named Charles
Lindbergh.
Oh, so I gotta do it again. Okay, here we go. Amelia Earhart heard about a man named Charles Lindbergh, who had flown across the Atlantic Ocean from New York to Paris. This sounded exciting. She wondered if she too could make a trip like this.
George Putnam,
a publisher from New York, asked if Miss Earhart to be the first woman to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Though she was only a passenger and not the pilot, she did not let this discourage her. She hoped with two P's. She hoped more opportunities would come her way because of the trip. Sure enough, the flight was a success. Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic.
Okay, so was she a pilot in this flight?
No.
She was a passenger, but she said, oh, well, at least it's a step.
Yep.
Sometimes our big dreams don't happen the first time. We have to agree to do the thing that maybe isn't our best, like our most ideal, but we're like, you know what? If that helps us get there, we'll say yes. So she still became the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, even as a passenger.
People were wild with excitement. They honored her with parades, compared her to Lindbergh, and called her Lady Lindy. Miss Earhart did not like the spotlight. She just wanted to fly her plane and break even more records.
So she didn't care about accolades. She just wanted to do things for herself. Okay, though she did not like to make speeches and go to events, Amelia Earhart was happy to earn more money to spend on flying. She became the world's best known female pilot. Her picture was published in papers and magazines. George Putnam became her manager. Remember, he was the publisher in New York. So George Putnam became her manager and arranged for her to make speeches and other appearances. Next, Miss Earhart entered an all-woman flying race called the Cleveland Women's Air Derby. 19 female pilots raced from California to Ohio. Today, this trip could be made in just one day, but in Amelia Earhart's time, it took 8 days. Several of the planes crashed during the race. Miss Earhart's plane flipped over when she was trying to land on the second day. That night, she quickly repaired her plane, which was good because remember how she learned how to fix planes. She quickly repaired her plane and was able to continue in the race. Only 11 of the 19 women completed the race. Amelia Earhart finished in 3rd place. Her friendship with these ladies encouraged her to start the 99s Club, a club for women pilots. She became their first president. The group now has thousands of members all over the world.
Cool.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Even though I read this last year. I forgot. It happens. Amelia Earhart continued setting records. She set 3 different speed records. She flew a plane over 180 miles per hour, which was fast for her time. Today, jets can fly up to 700 miles per hour. Across the Atlantic, 411, Mr. Cornthal.
Here we go.
Hold on, just checking.
This is long, but we can do it. Amelia Earhart was once asked again, will you marry me? This time she said yes. She married her manager, George Putnam. I didn't even know she was married. He supported her career and did not want her to stop flying. She became Amelia Earhart Putnam, but the press continued to call her Amelia Earhart. On May 20th, 1932, exactly 5 years after Charles Lindbergh made his famous solo trip across the Atlantic, Amelia Earhart decided she would make a similar trip. She would fly from Newfoundland, Canada, to Paris, France. Her trip,
Oui, oui.
Her trip was dangerous from the start. If she flew too high, ice would form on her plane. If she flew too low, the instruments would not work. But there was an even greater danger. Amelia Earhart must stay awake. If she fell asleep, she would crash. She sipped on chicken soup to stay awake.
Turn the page.
And to stay warm. Finally, she landed. She landed?
No, she saw land.
Oh, finally she saw land. Thank you. She did not make it to Paris. She landed in a cow pasture in Ireland. Still, she had flown across the Atlantic alone. When she returned to New York, there was a parade in her honor. The next day, President Herbert Hoover awarded her a medal for bravery.
Okay, so fun. She was supposed to get to Paris. Did she make it to Paris? No. She landed in a
She
cow
went to
pasture
Ireland.
in Ireland, but she stayed awake. She flew in a way that her plane didn't freeze. She sipped her chicken soup
Keep her warm.
to keep her warm and awake, and successfully landed in a cow pasture. And successfully crossed the Atlantic Ocean alone. So that was a big feat. Amelia's friend Orville Wright, we remember him, Orville. So look at the picture right there on page 412, Orville and Amelia Earhart. Orville Wright was probably amazed at the types of airplanes Amelia Earhart flew. In fact, Mr. Wright and Miss Earhart exchanged many letters and enjoyed talking about their love of flying. The Wright brothers' flights had inspired hundreds of pilots, including Amelia Earhart. Mr. Wright supported her in all her trips and was happy to see her succeed.
Cool.
Imagine, of course. He was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Other trips. Mr. Kornthal?
Yes. Amelia Earhart was asked to make the first solo trip from Hawaii to California. This 18-and-a-half-hour trip set another record. She soon decided to make a trip around the world. Others had made a similar trip. However, Miss Earhart wanted to travel near the equator, which would make the trip longer and harder than those already attempted. Amelia Earhart purchased another plane and hired 2 men who would navigate for her. After making the first stop, the plane's landing gear collapsed.
So what's the landing gear? Does anybody know?
It's a gear. Oh, you're
It's
asking.
the wheels that come down out of the plane.
Yes.
So the landing gears had collapsed and the wing of her plane was torn off. Do you think that's going to be a good thing for her? No, not at all.
No.
Keep going.
And the wing of her plane was torn. The group waited 2 months for the plane to be repaired. Then one of the navigators had to return home. With the repaired plane, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan, is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
Her navigator were ready to try again. They changed the flight path because of a dangerous weather patterns. The flight was going well. The team made several stops across the world to refuel and get supplies. They stopped in California, Florida, I like Florida, Puerto Rico, I like Puerto Rico, Brazil, I like Brazil, Africa, I like Africa, and made many places
many other places
reach. They reached New Guinea.
Until they reached New Guinea.
Which I like their coffee, by the way. From here, they had only 7,000 miles to go of the 29,000-mile trip. Just 2 more stops, and their journey would be complete.
Okay, so boys and girls, I know that you guys are used to the planes that we have, but this was a huge undertaking. It was a big deal. So they only had 7,000 miles to go of their 29,000-mile trip. 7 divided by 29, I'm trying to think of that as a fraction. The next stop was Howland Island. So remember we looked at the map and there was a little island that we couldn't even see. It was covered by the dot.
Yeah.
It was a very small island in the Pacific Ocean. Look it up on Google Maps. The United States built a landing strip and a lighthouse to help Amelia Earhart locate the island. That was nice.
Yeah.
It was only 2 miles long and less than a mile wide. It would be difficult to find. The U.S. Coast Guard ship came to help guide the plane to the island, but something went terribly wrong. Amelia Earhart could not hear the ship's directions and never found the island.
Oh.
The Coast Guard ship kept trying to contact her. Finally, they decided to send out a search party. 7 ships and 65 airplanes began to search, but her plane was never found. It's still unclear today what happened. Amelia Earhart knew the flights she made were dangerous, but she was willing to take the risk. She once wrote, Mr. Kornthal, will you read that?
Oh, I'd love to. Adventure is worthwhile in itself.
So she knew the risk and the danger, but she liked the adventurous part. So she's like, it's kind of worth it. Although her life ended in tragedy, Amelia Earhart became a role model for women all over the world. In honor of such brave women, such a brave woman, many streets, schools, and airports were named after her. Men and women alike learned from Amelia Earhart that they could find courage to do things others have said to be impossible. Okay, so Mr. Cornthal.
Yes.
Do you remember how many miles the entire trip was if she had made it?
No.
It's on the same page. It's the bottom of the first paragraph.
29,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Do you remember the little island where she was supposed to land? How can you forget it?
I don't know how you could forget this land island. Howland Island.
Excellent. Even though her life ended early, what impact did she make? Why are we still learning about her? She didn't complete her journey.
No, she didn't.
So why are we learning about her?
I think because she overcame a lot, because she worked hard.
Yeah, she still set a lot of records.
Yeah.
And she died trying to do the things that she thought were important.
Yeah.
So she died nobly in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at the top of page 414. Many people probably told Amelia Earhart the things she wanted to do were impossible, but she tried anyway. Have you ever been told something was impossible? Maybe you were told you were too small or too slow to do something.
Right.
Often, you can learn to do things just by practicing. I know a lot of you just started basketball for the first time ever this year, or
Cool.
soccer.
Love it.
As you learn to trust God, you will find that He will give you the ability to do whatever He calls you to. Now, sometimes you pursue something and it's not what He's called you to do. Did she become a doctor like she thought she would?
No.
No. So sometimes we pursue things that are not the direction God has for us, but He will provide you all you need and the ability to do what He calls you to.
Love it.
Will you read Luke 1:37 right there for
I
us?
love this one. For with God, nothing shall be impossible.
Awesome. And that is totally spot on.
Spot on.
Okay, this one's a different kind of comprehension check. Here's how it works.
Okay.
We are going to put these statements in order from first to last, which means what came first in the story. This is very different, boys and girls. I actually want you, if you're watching this video, I want you to stop and I want you to do this part all by yourself.
So pause it.
I
Pause,
actually want to...
put the pause button. Okay. Now that you started playing again.
Well, no, I actually had more instructions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I was going to read them all, and then I want you to think about the order that they came in. So if you already did it, great. Good for you. If you're still listening...
You got to pause again.
Good thing. But I didn't read it yet.
Okay, go.
So I'm going to read these and think about when they happened in Amelia's life. Okay, so the first one is Amelia Earhart did not land on Howland Island and was never found. Now, when you're putting facts in order, sometimes it's easier to find the first one and the last one and then fill out the ones in between.
It's a good.
So Amelia Earhart did not land on Howland Island and was never found. The second one says, Amelia went to the World's Fair and discovered her love of adventure. Okay, the third one, Amelia's father took her to an air show where she saw planes do stunts. This was where she found her desire to fly. Ooh. Number 4, Amelia Earhart made the first woman's solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. The fifth one, Amelia Earhart went to Canada to help nurses during World War I. Number 6, George Putnam asked Amelia Earhart to be the first woman passenger to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if you have not done this part, I really want you to stop. It will do you no good whatsoever to just listen because it's not going to stretch your brain at all.
So pause. Now can they pause?
Well, hold on, not
Okay.
yet.
Not yet.
So you are going to go through, if you need to look back at the chapter and decide which ones came first, do it.
Yeah.
But stretch your brain. I would rather you get like 3 of these wrong or 4 of them wrong and try your hardest than just copy, because who cares? That's not going to help you grow. Okay, so now, go ahead.
You can pause now.
Okay, so if you are listening to my voice, you have numbers written down
You
on a
filled
separate
it
piece
all
of... No,
out.
you didn't write in your book.
Not
Don't
in the
listen
book.
to Mr. Cornthal.
Separate piece of paper.
Separate piece of paper. I don't care if it's like a scratch piece of paper. You are going to number you had numbered those in order of what they which one they
Came
happened.
first, right.
Which one came first? First, second, third, fourth. Okay. So instead of going down and telling you the numbers, I will tell you, if you want to fill it in, to see if you just want to, if you got it right. 613 524. 613 524. 613-524. So if you got those right, good for you. If not, don't just change them. Pay attention to why they are what they are.
Okay.
So the first thing that happened is Amelia went to the World's Fair and discovered her love for adventure. That was the very first thing.
And this is number 2.
Number 2 is the first thing that happened. Right. So number 2 on our list was the first thing that happened. So if you think about it, before she does anything,
right,
she discovered her love for adventure. Then what happened? All the way down to number 5. The second thing that happened was number 5. Second 5. Amelia Earhart went to Canada and helped nurses during World War I. So remember, she went to school, she went to finishing school, and then she went to help the nurses, and she thought she was going to be a doctor. So that was the second thing that happened. Then the third thing that happened, she's still not a pilot yet. Amelia's father took her to an air show. 3 is actually 3.
3 is actually 3.
Amelia's father took her to an air show where she saw planes doing stunts. This is where she found her desire to fly. So it goes, she discovered her love of adventure. Then she went to help the nurses, and then her dad exposed her to the fair, and she got the desire to fly. Oh, she saw, the planes doing stunts. And then the fourth thing that happened was all the way down at number 6. George Putnam asked Amelia Earhart to be the first woman passenger to fly across the Atlantic. So remember, she was a passenger first. And then after that, Amelia made her first woman's solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean. So remember, she was a passenger first, then she was the first woman to solo. Finally, all the way back to number 1, Amelia did not land in Howland Island and was never found. So if I was filling this out, I would look at that and, well, the very end of her life, she wasn't found. The first thing she did was she had a love of adventure. I would know that she flew as a passenger before she flew as a soloist. I would know that she wanted to become a pilot before she became a pilot, right? So when you're figuring those out, I want you to use those reasonings. And if you're unsure, can you go back and look at the chapter and say, I don't remember which one came first. Did she go to the fair first, or did she go to, was she helping with the nurses first? Go check your chapter. But this is one of those things. Challenge yourself, boys and girls, with any piece of reading. You can go back to any of the chapters and write out some fun facts, mix them up the order, and see which one comes first. So cut them out on a piece of paper, write 5 facts that you learned about the chapter, cut them up, and see which one was first. It will help you remember. You know who would be good at that? I think Presley would do that really well. That's a fun challenge for you, Presley, for the next chapter. You can write out 5 fun facts in order, and then cut up the slips of paper, and then try and put it back in order.
Good.
Cool.
All right.
All right, boys and girls, have a great day. Happy flying.